Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Monday night MCU Lovin' Monday Marvel recap, rewatching, re-ranking of all the Marvel movies. This might be the last MCU thing we do for a little while. Figure that out next week probably. But tonight, it's very special. We're going to be continuing our rankings, final rankings of all the MCU movies. I gave mine last week, as did Bob Jones, no relation. And now we got Rory and Chad back with us tonight, and we're going to see what your final rankings are of all the MCU movies, or at least the first 27, 20, yeah, 27, right?
27's how many I got on my list.
Yeah, that's right. That's how many we ranked last week, so we hope we didn't add any.
Oh, speaking of that, Annie,
Mhm.
Love and Thunder was fun.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
I'm not going to put it on my list, but I'm just letting you guys know I enjoyed it.
Okay. I'm excited. I've been worried about it because so far, Love and Thunder has been the easiest to avoid spoilers for.
That's true.
So
Like, the only thing I've heard about it, other than it's fun, is there's some bad CGI thing that happens. And that's the only meme I've
There's
seen
a number
so
of bad CGI
far.
things. Some far more glaring than others.
Mm.
Like they didn't use any practical helmets, I believe, during
Oh,
production.
really?
oh,
Every single helmet is CGI'd, so they all look ridiculous.
Hmm.
that's too bad.
Yeah.
hmm
I wonder if that's like a director's choice or if that's like the upper management. Like if that's
Yeah, it could also just be the actors being like, "I don't want these big fancy hats," because they get big in Thor movies, man. They get real big, right?
yeah, that's true
So
too.
it's like it's impractical and uncomfortable. So just put it on with CGI.
Also unwieldy for action scenes.
Yeah, fall off all the time.
I feel like Thor movies more than any other have had like the highest instance of unneeded CGI that wasn't great.
hmm
Right.
Like
Yeah.
CGI that could have been a practical effect, and they're like, no, we'll just do it in post, and then
Yeah.
they didn't really.
Yeah.
Like other Marvel movies, I feel like have had bad CGI bits, but it's like, oh, there's a real good reason why it has to be CGI, and it just didn't work this time.
Right. I think the Thor movies, especially the last two, are really heavy on the that CGI kind of look what they got.
Yeah, if you were into Ragnarok, then this should be absolutely up your alley. If you hated what they did to Thor and Ragnarok, maybe give this one a pass.
Okay.
Yeah. So Bob Jones, if you're watching, you can skip it, I guess. But yeah, we've got.
I'm in. So
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, check it out soon. Next time we go to the movies, probably. I think. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, we're doing on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/Walter Strider. I think that's my username on Letterboxd. So look up Walter Strider on Letterboxd. Add me as a friend. I think that's what it's called. Add me on there, and then you can see all of our lists. You can see my list. See Bob Jones' list. Now you can see. We're gonna start with Chad since I already started it. Bring it up on the screen here. So Chad, you have to explain yourself and your reasoning. So your
All right.
number one, Captain America: The
So,
Winter Soldier.
yeah,
Yeah.
Winter Soldier. That was my number one, hands down. It is just the mar. Now, as we went over every week, we're talking about how we sort of came to the conclusions that we came to about each of these movies. And my entire ranking system is based on how much I can watch this movie repeatedly.
Right.
Like what kind of desire I have to watch it again immediately after watching it was basically what everything came down to. And Winter Soldier is one of the uh, really well choreographed movies. Like
Yeah.
all the action sequences are great. Uh, the action is packed in the early part of the movie. That was one of the things that I had completely forgotten about when we were watching it again, was just how breakneck speed everything goes for the first half of the movie.
Mm.
And uh the actual, like, the plot of it is enjoyable. Everyone, I thought, gave good performances. This was one of the first movies that let you sort of get into who Black Widow was.
Mm.
So easily my favorite. uh the number two movie right behind it, which
Yeah.
on my original list before we started doing MCU 11, uh I had tied for first place with Captain America: The Winter
Mm.
Soldier, was the first Iron Man movie.
Yeah.
And that one, it's the one that kickstarted everything. It is one of the, I think, uh most well paced and plotted
Mm.
of all of the Marvel movies, and it's infinitely rewatchable. I've definitely seen it more than I have every other Marvel movie, and not just because it came out 14 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Right behind that was Thor in third place, and that I actually went back and looked at my other list, uh, the one that I'd been maintaining up until a few years ago. I think that I stopped right after Far From Home,
Mm.
so it's missing everything in phase four basically.
Right.
But that list, I had Thor in the 13th place, and with this one, it actually went all the way up to three because
Wow.
watching it, I I had forgotten about how much I like this movie. Now,
Mm.
this was the one that I think that we had the most split opinions on because of uh like I felt completely different about this than the way that Rory felt.
Oh yeah.
And I totally understand where he's coming from on it. But for me, it's just like, I like what everyone did in this movie. And I thought that it was another one that was extremely well paced. And I think the pacing on it actually helped raise it more than anything else.
Mm.
Like, it felt like something where it was just like there was no moments where I was like, I could play a video game and watch this at the same time, which
Yeah.
happens a lot in the lower half of the list.
Yeah.
In fourth place, I have Black Panther, which is the highest of the Phase 3 movies. Black Panther, again, is another one that's well plotted, rewatchable. The only thing that keeps Black Panther from being in the top three is the fact that the final action sequence
Mm.
was the way that it was,
Yeah.
and there's good reasons for it, but it's like, in the end, it's just like, ah, man, you had a perfect two-thirds of a movie, or maybe even three-fourths of a perfect movie, and then all of a sudden things went to crap because it looks like you did everything in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Looks
Yeah,
bad.
that's
Yeah.
fair.
Fifth place, we have Captain America: First Avenger. Uh, that was, I think, that movie is the highest movie where there's like a really distinct director flavor to it.
Mm.
Like, some of the movies are very much just like, this is MCU, this is the way that we do movies, and some of them you can definitely tell who was in charge of making this, and you could definitely tell that this was the same guy that did The Rocketeer. I feel like,
Oh yeah, that's
Well,
right.
that's
Forgot
fair.
about
Yeah,
that.
I got to rewatch The
Yeah.
Rocketeer.
yeah, that's also a very good movie. Uh, I would say that I like First Avenger better than The Rocketeer, but that's only
Mm.
because I like Captain America a lot.
Yeah,
Sixth place, we got Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 was, like Thor, another huge riser from my previous list. My previous list, I had Iron Man 3 in the 19th spot. It
Wow.
was very close to the bottom, but it went all the way up to sixth place because again, you could definitely feel the director flavor in this
Mm.
one. And I don't know, maybe I just wasn't as into Shane West as I was
Shane
when
Black.
I first, or Shane Black, yeah.
Yeah.
Shane West was the guy that was in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with
Uh,
Sean Connery.
yes.
I think he was in one of those Nick Sparks movies too, but I
Mm.
don't know what the names of all of those are. Probably the
You'll,
Rain
you'll-
Kissing Booth.
yeah. You'll know all the names by the time we finish rewatching and ranking all of the Nicholas Sparks movies.
Oh, Sparks Lovin'. That's what's coming next week, Monday.
Yeah.
I can't wait until we watch the one with Channing Tatum. So where was that? Iron Man 3. Number 7, Captain Marvel. That is uh one that we talked a lot about what we want movies to be versus what they were.
Hmm.
And uh Captain Marvel was one of those ones where it's like, yeah, dude, I can definitely understand why people wanted something different than what we got, but I thought what we got was very fun.
Hmm.
And
Uh,
it's another one that I enjoy rewatching. Captain Marvel is actually probably my favorite background movie of all of the things in the MCU, where it's like I can just have it playing next to me on the TV, and then I'll just turn when it's like, oh, this is a part that I want to check out. Thor Ragnarok at number 8. This is actually like a big glut of phase 3 movies that all sort of ended up being like, oh, this one just slightly edges out the other ones. Ragnarok, as much as I enjoyed Kenneth Branagh's Thor, and I
Hmm.
thought that it was well paced and well plotted, well acted, and all that stuff, Thor Ragnarok is very fun. And like I said, I also enjoyed Love and Thunder, so uh, I think I'm just kind of in the bag for Taika movies.
Okay.
Uh, After Ragnarok is Infinity War, and after Infinity War is Endgame, because I feel like you kind of have to put those movies right next to each other. You can like one better than the other, but there's definitely like you can't move them too far apart from each other, I feel like.
Yeah. I was surprised Bob Jones did. His are like 5 or 6 places away from each other.
that's
So
weird.
Yeah. Go back and watch last week's to see what that was all about. But yeah.
yeah, everyone has their own system. After Endgame, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I feel was the superior Guardians of the Galaxy. Uh, the first one, it really just felt like, you know, things were happening.
Hmm.
And the second one, it felt like we got to know people more.
Yeah.
Um, Doctor Strange is after that. It's in 12th spot. I don't want to say that this movie is ranked so high just because it has my favorite joke in the MCU, but that doesn't hurt either.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp is after that, which is a movie that every time I watch it, I feel like, man, I wanted this to be so much better. But it's not a bad movie at all. It's
Right.
just that uh Ghost is a really cool villain. You have uh who was the bad guy from the first season of Justified that's in this movie?
Oh, Walton Goggins, I think.
Yeah, Walton
Yeah.
Goggins. That dude's amazing. I
Yeah,
want him in
he's great.
everything. Like you want to see more of that guy. You have Lawrence Fishburne that you want to see
Hmm.
more of. Like every single person in this movie, you're like, I want more.
That that Walter Goggins, like I kind of want him and Gilbert Godfrey to go on a
Mhm.
road trip with a random person, and it just be a series to see how long that random person can go without committing suicide. Because like both of those people are very talented,
Hmm.
Hmm.
but part of their talent is just like getting under your skin and staying there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And um,
They're people that you like watching, but you may not actually want to be around.
Yeah.
yeah,
They do
Hmm.
a good job of playing people that you don't want to be around. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie at 14, which is at the round about the midpoint of the list.
Mhm.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Guardians of the Galaxy. That's sort of right at the baseline of like, okay, these are still good, but yeah, there's obviously much better things that I could be watching.
Yeah.
But they're still good. They're still
Yeah.
enjoyable. Spider-Man: Homecoming is after that. After Homecoming, No Way Home. Uh, that one was one where I don't think we even talked about it because we were so exhausted by
Oh
the
yeah.
end of the marathon. But I like No Way Home, but it didn't give me the same kind of feelings that Homecoming did.
Mm.
Like even I like the first time I watched it, I'm like, this is the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah.
Uh, but on rewatch, it's just like, yeah, this is pretty good. After No Way Home, Civil War, because uh, I think both of them very much rely upon the hey, look at all these guys,
Mhm.
and the three Spider-Mans. That excited me more than just the one Spider-Mans. After
Sure.
Civil War, Shang-Chi, uh, that one that one's good. Uh, I don't really I don't really have a lot to say about it that we didn't talk about during our rankings.
Yeah.
And then we start to get to the part of the list where I get bored watching these movies. Not the whole thing. I don't not want to watch them, but
Mm.
these are the ones where it's like I'm going to start losing focus when I watch them. Like Far From Home. That one is just a lot of the hijinks is just like I don't I don't care. I
Right.
just don't care what's happening. The first Ant-Man movie, uh, it like I don't know that Ant-Man was like anything was too. There were just segments that I felt like, I don't really. What
Yeah.
else is happening?
Right.
Marvel's Avengers, which that
Yeah.
was the biggest fall of anything in my list.
Yeah.
On my original list, the first Avengers movie, not first Avenger, but Marvel's Avengers, was in seventh place,
Right.
and now it is 21.
Wow. It's a
It's
big fall.
the biggest fall out of everything, but that's just because uh, the more I rewatch it, the less I care.
Hmm. You
After
see a better version of every character in that in another movie, right? I figured
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. The Eternals is after that, uh, which I want to put the Eternals higher on the list, but there's not enough there for me to really do that. Like I enjoyed that movie for what it was, and I think everyone is interesting, and I wanted to know more about every
Mm.
single character almost. And it's just you got to look at what's there, and what's
Yeah.
there was
Exactly.
Yeah.
there. Black Widows after that. Again, that's one where half the movie I'm just like I don't care what's happening right now
Mm.
until Florence Pugh is actually like hanging out with Scarlett Johansson. It's meh.
Yeah.
Incredible
I,
Hulk. No, sorry, Rory. You're saying something.
no, I was just gonna say I feel like that's like the biggest problem with casting Florence Pugh and things
Hmm.
is that until she shows up, or it can be a fine movie, and then she shows up and she's just gonna be the best part of it.
Right.
Hmm.
It's a real
Like
Poochie kind of situation.
I was watching the Hawkeye TV show,
Hmm.
and I freaking love Hawkeye, the MCU Hawkeye.
Hmm.
I really enjoy the actor playing him. I can't remember his name off the top of
Mm.
my head.
Jeremy
Jeremy
Um,
Renner.
Renner.
Jeremy Renner. Um, like 9 times out of 10, I like whatever he's in just because he's in it.
Hmm.
And then Florence Pugh came in, and I was like, she's now the best part of this show.
Hmm.
I was enjoying the show beforehand, but now every time she's not on screen, I'm a little bit disappointed. Um,
She is
that's
very poochy that way.
Yeah, whenever she's not on screen, all the characters got to be asking, "Where is Florence Pugh?"
Yeah.
Mhm. So yeah, Incredible Hulk, which I'll still say is underrated, but that's because everyone's just like, "This is the worst movie," and it's like it's not the worst.
Yeah, even the MCU kind of says it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also not great.
Yeah.
Thor: The Dark World, which also a lot of people say is the worst movie,
Yeah.
and uh, what I'll say about it is that you know, if everyone loves Loki that much, there's a lot of Loki in here.
Yeah.
Iron Man 2 was next on my list. That's the movie that I complain about the most by far. Because again, I just feel like that movie needed so much more editing. And also
Mm.
maybe John Favreau needed to say cut more often. Or at least gesture to everyone on camera, can we wrap this up? Hurry it up. And Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is a movie that I've rewatched parts of many, many times because it tends to be on TNT.
Nah.
And much like the first Avengers, not the first Avenger, but Marvel's Avengers, uh, the more I watch it, the less I like it.
Okay. And that's it.
And
That's all 27.
that's my list. Dun, 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 dun,
Nice.
dun, dun.
Wow.
Yeah,
Um,
so, let's see.
I didn't disagree with anything that Chad said in his reasoning. Um, I
You also care more about like craft and art than I do. I'm just like I want to see the good stuff.
well, like so one of the things that like rewatching these and talking about them with you guys has changed for me a lot is when I is something you said, Chad, where I think it was you said it, where there's stuff that we're watching that I might not like it, but I'm not in the target demographic. And if I look at it through that lens, it suddenly becomes a much better thing than whatever it was that I was just watching, right?
Mhm.
And then I was actually talking to Drew not too long ago, and I brought up, I was just talking about the characters, and it kind of crystallized for me. I brought up that these aren't just like standalone movies. It's a saga. Each one of these characters has a saga, and that made it a lot easier for me to suddenly rank them because like there's a lot of these movies that like I love the Winter Soldier. It's like I think it's one of the most enjoyable to just sit down and watch at any point in time. Um, but at the same time, I couldn't say that I liked it more than I liked Spider-Man: Homecoming. Like I just don't have a way of. I like them both at the same amount for completely different reasons, and it makes it really hard for me to rank them. But once I started thinking about it as each character was a saga, um, so like all of their movies are one story, just in parts. That made it a lot easier for me to start the ranking system, um, just because there's like anyway that's basically what I had to wind up doing. So I'm ready for my list.
Cool. Yeah.
If I can, I might need help adding movies in because I don't have
Save
a
this.
list right here in front of
Okay,
me.
cool. Yeah, we can
Um,
always rearrange them and things, but yeah. So that was, that's Chad's list. Let us know what you think about that. No, how do I to my lists?
Starting you.
There it is. Haha.
awesome.
Oh yeah. Captain America, Winter Soldier's #1 for both Chad and Bob Jones. Not for me. I don't think it cracks the top 10 for me, but we'll see where Roy keeps it the trend.
Yeah.
And then I guess we can average everybody and figure out what the actual real list is supposed to be. I don't know if anyone would want to do that. It's taking a while.
I think we definitely shouldn't do that on air.
Yeah.
Because I'm bad at math and
Yeah.
averages.
I mean,
and
I
remembering
watching TV,
27
things like that.
movies.
I could like bring up a spreadsheet and like just have you feed me stuff, but that doesn't exactly sound like riveting entertainment.
I don't know if people like math.
It'd be interesting to stream that though, just to see whether or not anyone interrupts to be like, "Oh, this is not the best use of spreadsheets." There,
I think you
like
tips on how to use
here's a
Excel.
much better formula that you can be using.
Yeah.
Also,
Good
something
idea.
negative about Jews.
But all right. What's your #1? Start
All
from the
right,
top.
so this hasn't really changed, but for me, it's my #1 is the Avengers saga. So in almost exactly reverse order. So I like Endgame, Infinity War, then Ultron, and then the first one. And I think that's all of the actual Avengers, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
not
that
the
is
first
exactly
Avengers,
reverse
which is
order.
Yeah.
Not an Avengers movie. Right.
And then and the reason for that is just because it has everybody in it. So I feel like it has the most stories that either originate there or tie into it or end there.
Right.
And
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as a comic book reader, are you like bigger on like the bigger crossover events more than individual stories a lot of times?
As a comics reader, I generally actually like the smallest scale stories possible, which is why I tend to like Spider-Man. And if I'm a DC person, it's Batman, because they're never, or not never, but it's rare that they're saving the entire world every episode. Right. Like I just got caught up on Iron Man, and he just like saved the universe like every other issue for a month straight, and it was just like, the stakes are just so low. Like it's more fun when he's just trying to like not get drunk because everything sucks. So generally, I like the smaller ones. I do like team ups for like a better thing or better arc, but I generally don't like the Infinity War is weird that I enjoy that one so much as a comic and as a movie, is because generally those bigger events, I'm just like, this is too much.
Right. And there's a lot more to track as far as what all the other characters have been getting up to lead the point and everything.
Yeah, and that's never really been my problem. Like that's, for me, that's kind of like the fun part. Like keeping track of where everybody is and how they got to that point. I can understand how some people find that boring, but that, to me, that would be like saying to somebody who builds models, like, oh, there's so many pieces you have to keep track of. It's like, no, that's the fun part. Like for me, it's more along the lines of like, in the comics, it's like, oh, the Infinity War was awesome. Thanos was doing that for a stupid fucking reason. It takes something out of it. And like, how many times there's just some megalomaniac going for infinite power because they want to. It's just like,
in the comics, he does it to impress a girl, right? And that girl happens to be Death.
Exactly.
So I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty metal.
There's a lot about Thanos that's metal, but I don't know if it's like the good metal.
Right.
but like that's just generally in those big crossover events. That's my problem. I felt like they did a really good job in each of the Avengers MCU movies of having, um, other than like maybe the first Avengers, having a bad guy that had like a legitimate goal that was attainable for that villain, where they didn't so much in the comics all the time.
Right.
But that's why Avengers is in my top. The second saga that I like the most is uh, the Spider-Man. Um, I I liked Homecoming, um, No Way Home, and then Far From Home in that order.
Yeah, that seems to be the ranking that most of us seems to be going with, at least in that order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my only caveat to that is is kind of what I was saying earlier, repeating Chad, is that it's not that I found that Far From Home was a bad movie. It's just the high school antics part of it wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed
Right.
at high school students. If I hadn't seen Peter Parker go through it before, if I hadn't gone through it with Peter Parker before, if I hadn't lived that life, so long ago, that probably wouldn't have been as uninteresting to me as it could have been, or as it was. So I don't think that's necessarily a knock against the movie. It's just that subplot wasn't for me. Because there's definitely lots of parts of Far From Home that I really liked.
Right.
And I think that the parts of Far From Home that I really liked, I in fact liked more than the parts I liked of No Way Home. It's just No Way Home had less stuff that I was uninterested in. And then after Spider-Man comes the Iron Man movies. So for me, that's Iron Man 3, Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
And I feel like I agree with Chad that it's not that there's anything wrong with Iron Man 2. It's just, or it's not that it's a bad movie. It's just that there's parts of it that could have been faster paced. It didn't need to be as shticky as it was in some spots. I don't really like comical bad guys. Like the Joker can kind of pull it off, but it's hard for me to take a bad guy seriously if you can't take the bad guy seriously.
Right.
So like Justin Hammer, like trying to beat out Tony Stark and just sucking at it, like that it didn't sell it for me.
Yeah,
That's
a little goofy.
That's the big reason why that movie fell down for me. Because like I like the action sequences in that a lot, but
yeah, the final fight with Whiplash and Iron Man and War Machine together, like when we were rewatching that, I was like, "Damn, I forgot how good this was."
It's a little bit of a trek to get there, I think.
Then after Iron Man is Captain America. The best one is Winter Soldier. And then First Avenger, and then Civil War.
Uh,
Um, now, the reason why these three fall so far down on my list, because technically I think I liked um, all three of these movies individually more than I liked Iron Man. Is I feel like these three, for being the Captain America saga, had the least amount of growth out of all of the characters. Like there's
Right.
less change from the first to the end. Um, like I still really enjoyed them. Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War, I would watch over and over again. Like I would turn it on right now, either of them. So
Please
I don't
don't.
have any.
While we're
Yeah,
talking.
no, I might. I said I would, and I like to back it up. But
Right.
so like I don't dislike any of these movies. But just because Captain America stays Captain America throughout,
Right. Yeah.
That's why it comes down a little bit more.
That's a really good point. Like at the end of Iron Man 3, like you feel like it could be the end of Tark's story, you know, and then, but at the end of Civil War, it's like that's kind of the beginning of a next phase for Captain America. There's a lot of loose end on with what's gonna happen with Bucky and everything, and what's the next thing for Captain America. Yeah, so that's a good point.
Then for me comes Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and 3. And it's in the exact same, or so in reverse order, because I agree that everything that was good about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 got better in Volume 2, except for Drax.
That's true.
I think that he became a lot more of a one-note joke, but there's a few things in there where it's just like there's so much depth to the character that it's just like, but they only give him like a couple of lines that add that.
And like I'm willing to accept it, just as he wasn't a central focus of that particular movie, but he was still there.
Right.
So I'm willing to accept it, but nevertheless, he was better in the first one, but this falls underneath that.
Hopefully he'll be a bigger part in the third one, especially because he said that he's not coming back.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I did not hear that.
So like there's his relationship with Mantis. There's like more stuff for him to do. I think now that he's got her to bounce off, I think you get a little bit of that in Volume 2. But then when she's the main character in 3, and probably gives him more to do. We'll see.
Then comes Ant-Man and the Wasp and Ant-Man.
Yeah, by the way, all the star rankings on these are just my personal rankings, not your guys's.
Okay.
For anybody watching and confused why they,
Oh, I thought those were average user rankings or something.
No, I don't think so. They're the more accurate rankings because they're my rankings.
Yeah.
So that's more accurate to what they
David's
really
above average rankings. So these ones I thought were fun, but once again, it's not as much growth over the totality of the movies, and I just also feel the need to say that you could flip a coin of Guardians of the Galaxy versus Ant-Man, which one I think is better at any moment in time. They're almost completely tied. They're both all four of them are fun, but I think they're all the same quality of movie. After this comes Thor, and it's going to be Thor Ragnarok, Thor 1, and then Thor 2.
I'm surprised that Thor came in that high on your list.
You know, Thor Ragnarok really raised the
Mm.
the overall growth of the character as far as Saga is concerned,
Hmm.
um, and that's how I had to decide I was ranking them, is because I just couldn't compare accurately like the end movie from the first movie versus somebody else's middle movie. Like it
Hmm.
just,
Mm.
um, I mean, I felt like the Dark World was everything that was bad about Thor
Hmm.
made more.
Mm.
Uh,
Right.
and like you guys have almost convinced me that it's a matter of taste on whether or not you like Thor. But Thor Ragnarok, they hurt Thor, um, the person, almost like as much as he needed to be hurt in the first Thor, right?
Mm.
Hmm.
Like I felt like he was more damaged and depowered in Ragnarok than he was in Thor when that was his whole thing. He was being punished and having
Right.
his power taken away. Um, so if it wasn't for Ragnarok, those other two would be much further down my list.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
That's a good point about like the first Thor. Like he gets his power back, and then that's how he's able to win at the end of the day. But the end of Ragnarok, he gets his power back, and he still loses what he thinks he needs to win, which is getting the kingdom back or whatever.
Hmm.
Definitely a much more humbling experience. That's a good point.
well, also he isn't just given the power back; he
Right.
claims it on his own, which I
Yeah,
feel like is a powerful moment.
which I just read recently on Twitter. Someone pointed out, "Hey, so Thor Ragnarok, the moral of the story was that he didn't need a hammer. So
Right.
why did they immediately go into Endgame and be like, or Infinity War and be like, I need to make another hammer?
Yeah.
Um, well, he didn't need a hammer to call the lightning, but
Hmm.
that lightning wasn't going to touch Thanos.
Mm.
So Thanos can only be killed by hammers.
Or the axes,
Yeah.
comically large axes.
Or hammer axes.
Yeah, hammer axes.
Like what you didn't see is when Tony Stark snapped his fingers, it was a bunch of little hammers just beating him until he burst into dust. Um, all right, so I think that's all of the
Oh
multi
yeah.
movies.
Mm.
So that's when it comes to the rest of them. Even though I still
Right.
like them, the reason why they're as far down my list as they are is because
Mm.
they didn't have a full arc. They were just basically origin stories
Right.
Hmm.
or one notes. Um, so the first of this one is Black Widow. I thought that was a damn fine movie, and if it hadn't come out when it came out, like if it came out canonically before Endgame,
Mm.
this would have been a great movie.
Right.
If
If
I
it
didn't
came out
know,
after Civil War when it
Right.
yeah,
takes
Yeah,
place.
when it takes
yeah,
place.
um, like I think it's a really fun movie, and once again, I think the boring parts of it are more boring because or only boring because they don't matter, and the growth
Mm.
that Natasha has as a character doesn't matter because we already see her grown in
Right.
the end and then dead. So, uh,
That's a
but
good point.
when I watch them in timeline order, them it's a better movie. So
Mm.
there's that. Um, right underneath, or actually, I'm sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
Black Panther comes before Black
Mm.
Widow. Um, my bad. Um, so I think Black Panther is one of the best movies that um, the MCU has put together as far as uh, great casting great acting, good action sequences. The villain is the only villain that I've respected almost as much as Thanos. For just being like a well played villain where you're like, oh, I almost agree with you, and that's why I have to disagree with you so much. And I agree that the last fourth of the movie, it's like, oh, this was rushed, and if it wasn't for that, this would be an almost perfect movie.
Right.
But once again, just because the saga is only so short, that's why it falls down so
Right.
low on my list.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about Black Panther. Another thing I thought about is like his weapons, where he's got the claws like on his fingernails. Like that doesn't make for a good looking fight. Like in any way, it's hard to do
Yeah.
in a way that looks cool. So that's always kind of working against him when he's in a fight.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
if you're not,
Like when he's jumping around and kicking people, but when it starts slashing with the claws, then it's not good.
claws are unfortunately not really cool looking unless
Yeah.
you're allowed to have excessive amounts of blood.
Mm.
The more blood you can have, the cooler claws get.
Yeah.
See the difference between Wolverine, or Wolverine Origins, the Wolverine, and Logan.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that completely. Also, like this is just patriarchal bullshit, but like it always looks like an open-handed slap rather than a like a
Right.
punch. So
Yeah.
it feels less powerful all the way around, unless you see that blood gushing to be like, oh, maybe it was effective.
Hmm.
And then so after Black Widow is Shang-Chi.
Mm.
Once again, I really enjoyed the movie for what it was. I don't have any negative feelings about it as a whole. It's an origin story with no follow up, so it has room to move up. Um, Same thing with the next one, which is Doctor Strange.
Mm.
Uh, it's only so low because there was no follow up. Spoiler: I did see Multiverse of Madness, and if that was included, Doctor Strange would be much higher up on this
No.
list. I think I'm one of the few people that actually really loved Sam Raimi's take on Doctor Strange.
Mm.
I know there's problems with it, but I liked it a lot.
Right.
And then
Yeah, I really like the Sam Raimi stuff a lot in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love when directors can put their own signature touches into these movies.
Mm.
And the thing about this one is I feel like Sam Raimi put his signature on it, but still kept the core of the character.
Hmm.
Mm.
And a lot of times when I see a director try to put their stamp on it, it's them fucking up the character. But I think Raimi did a good job this time of holding Doctor Strange, elevating him, and still putting his stamp on what he was seeing.
Right.
So
Hmm.
I really liked it. Um, uh, After Doctor Strange's Incredible Hulk,
Mm.
once again, it's not that I thought this was a bad movie. Um, I think it's a better movie than some of the other ones on the list on a standalone, but just because it doesn't have the backing of another movie, the saga itself is just kind of a one note movie. Um, so I didn't feel like there was as much growth.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, because he kind of gets all his growth in other movies that aren't his movies, and it's all a lot
right.
of stuff happens in between movies, and then like that the whole character doesn't really hasn't gotten a
Well,
fair shake yet.
Yeah, other than Shang-Chi, I think Doctor Strange, Incredible Hulk, and Black Widow all get more growth in the Avengers movies.
Mm.
So, like, their origin stories being separate, that's just why they're so low on my list. I've got the Eternals. I think the Eternals is my least favorite
Right.
movie so far.
So Captain Marvel would be next then.
Yeah, Captain Marvel. Yeah. And once again, I really love the Captain Marvel movie. It's only because there's no growth throughout the movie. So, like, Captain Marvel 2 will most likely change my ranking for it there. But it's just, like I say, I was having too much trouble trying to compare some of these movies because they're all like the distance between my least favorite and my most favorite is so there's just so little space. It's hard to. I have to come up with a ranking system. So like Chad with his how bored does he get through it, or how much does he want to play a video game? I had to come up with something that was like, how can I separate these movies in a way that is somewhat fair?
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. By saga, by storyline. Cool. It's almost like if you were reading these were all comic books. These are sort of the order in which you'd probably be prioritizing which books you were reading, which series you were reading.
That's
yeah.
If it was comic books, it would be Spider-Man above the Avengers. But other than that, yeah.
Well, cool. Yes, then that is all of our rankings. You can see them all on Letterboxd. Find Walter Strider. Which, if you get that reference, good for you. Let me know, because that means you're pretty cool.
I'm not going to Google it just to be cool, David. I will say that rewatching these movies, like, I expected my overall love of the MCU to like go down. And I feel like, if anything else, I have more respect for the enormity of what they did in these movies. And that even the sagas that I didn't like as much were still highly entertaining, and I would watch all. Not only would I watch, but I will watch all of these movies again in order, probably within the next year or two. So
cool. Yeah, I think I definitely got a better appreciation of like the first 3 phases of the movies. Like everything up until Endgame. I was like, oh yeah, I think I get a better appreciation for those movies and liked them more, and what they were able to accomplish with that. I definitely got a lot more respect for it. But then looking at the newest phase of movies, it's like 2 of them like not good, and then like 2 of them are pretty okay, and then it's like I don't know what's going on. And maybe after we finish up this next phase and it all comes together, it'll make more sense. But right now, it doesn't feel like the future of the MCU is something that I'm particularly interested in, based on what they've shown us so far.
The other thing about it is there's just so much of it in Phase 4 because they're doing the TV series as well, and it just feels like, okay, I've watched over 100 hours of MCU content. When are you going to tell me where this is going?
Right. Yeah.
Unless one of the movies that we've already seen is telling us where it's already going. Probably the end of Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
I mean,
Doctor Strange. What's their name?
Clea / Charlize Theron.
Yeah, Charlize Theron. She shows up to take him away, and then at the end of Black Widow, what's her name, shows up. Like, these women keep showing up in the end credits and taking our heroes away to the next adventure, but we don't know what it is. We just want to know. Yeah. We need to see a Thanos or something, right?
Well, like, I feel, and maybe this is just because of the comic reader in me, but like, as much as everybody's asking like what's the next big Marvel bad, part of me is hoping that they go like an entire phase without a big cohesive thing, because I feel like that's one of the things that like fucks with the comic book companies, is that they keep going from one universal event to the next,
Right.
without any time in between to like make the characters live in that world that they've
Mm.
just made, basically. Which is, I feel like, why Far From Home and No Way Home work so well,
Mm.
um, is because you're just dealing with Peter Parker dealing with the after effects of, like, oh, this shit just happened, and now I have to figure out what my life is like. What's the new normal?
Right. Yeah.
But we haven't
Exactly.
seen anybody else do that.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
um,
He's the only person in the MCU or any of the superheroes that has to like pay rent or anything. You have
right?
to deal with that. Yeah.
But like I think like one of the things that like really worked for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the TV series, is that they
Mm.
are kind of dealing with that. Um,
Right.
I think they could have dealt with it better and had that be more impactful, but at least they are dealing with the fallout. Um, but I feel like you could get through an entire phase just dealing with the fallout of like, we won, but at a cost. So
Right.
hmm
here, and I feel like that could be a really good time to like be building up some of these characters that haven't been played by Robert Downey Jr. To make them somebody that we want to follow.
Right.
hmm
Um,
Yeah.
so
I really feel like they're kind of heading towards with all the multiverse stuff, like heading towards some kind of reset button. Because like I was thinking about, we're getting ready to talk about this much during the Spider-Thon, but like how we see in No Way Home that like the MCU Spider-Man, he has to learn the great responsibility and great power thing. He learns that not because he lets this street level thug get away and kill his uncle. It's part of this whole thing where he has to talk to this wizard and get there's a spell going on that's going to destroy the entire universe if they don't fix it and all these things because that's the world that this Spider-Man lives in. And, like that's the scale of everything now, and it's hard to have the same kind of stories we got in like the first phase of Marvel of the MCU
mhm.
when everything's already blowing up to such a big proportion. So they're probably gonna. I see them resetting in some way with the multiverse. I think.
I I feel like I don't think they're going to go with the reset just
Mm.
because they started the MCU, and then when Spider-Man, they saw how bad Spider-Man got hit by resetting again, that
Mm.
I still feel like that's got to be something that's like a bunch of these like exec level people are afraid of, is
Mm.
doing another reboot,
Right.
because audiences are sick of it. I think that I think they are going with the two universes collide, at least, so
Mm.
they can bring in like the X-Men and any characters that they have killed off or whatever, that they can
Right.
bring in another version of them. But I think that will also give them more smaller villains that they could have like one-off movies with, um, if they wanted to. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were seeing more villains out of nowhere, um, pop up,
Mm.
um, or more bad versions of our heroes or whatever, and then find out that it's an incursion that's happening, because that's something they
Right.
did in the comics. So
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see. What do you think, Joey? The future of the MCU is now that we've looked at the past.
Now, like I said, uh, the incursion thing from the end of Doctor
Mm.
Strange is the only thing that they've done so far where it really looks like, okay, yeah, this is definitely a strong direction where this can be headed. Uh, I think that that's an interesting way to go. Uh, one thing that I'm definitely gonna say though is like there's a lot of people that are like, oh, Phase 4 feels so directionless. I don't know what they're doing. They're not gonna be able to match the brilliance of
Mm.
the Infinity Saga. And it's like, okay, Doesn't change my opinion. I'm still gonna keep watching these things.
Right.
I grew up having to watch Sylvester Stallone, Judge Dredd. I grew up with bat nipples.
Yeah.
I had to watch really, really bad comic book movies in order for me to watch comic book movies. And so it's just like uh none of these are like the Phantom, you know?
Yeah.
Like all of these are just wonderful gifts that are being given to me by the universe. Every single one of them, even Age of Ultron.
Well, like that's the thing that made like what I was kind of talking about when I was talking about like how it made me appreciate the MCU more is like looking at it from the view of like, oh, these are all these huge epic hero journeys, not just individual movies. It's like, yeah, the MCU can survive like a pretty big string of bad movies and then turn around and make great movies again.
Hmm.
Like even their worst movie is not the Phoenix Saga.
Yeah.
Like they haven't jumped in on the Clone Wars and been like, well, we don't know how we're getting out of this. And I'm talking about the Spider-Man Clone Wars, not uh, Star Wars Clone Wars. My apologies.
Oh. Wait, is it called
Uh,
Clone Wars
I don't know if
in
that. I think
Spider-Man?
it's
Okay.
that's it's the no, it's the Clone Conspiracy. I'm sorry.
Clone Conspiracy was the second Clone Saga, I think,
Yeah,
the most
um,
recent one.
yeah. The first one with the clones wasn't so bad. It wasn't until like we didn't know if Peter Parker was the clone, and then Ben Riley was also Scarlet Spider, and then his parents were back, and then everyone was clones, and then nobody was clones. Like they got really fucking dumb with it.
Yeah,
For like 2 or 3 years, we were sitting there being like, maybe Peter Parker's a clone. I don't know.
if 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 they had had an endpoint to the story
Yeah,
in mind at any point before it got real close to the end and people turned on it, I think that that would be a much better remembered portion of Marvel history.
Mm.
Unfortunately, uh, from everything that I've read about it, uh, what happened with the Clone Saga is they brought in some clones and they said, "Oh, everything's selling really great. Let's keep on doing this clone stuff."
People
So
love
then
clones.
they added more clones and they wrote stories about other clone things and they kept on going with it and then they ran it into the ground and they kept on digging that hole deeper until finally they're just like, okay, we have to wrap this up.
yeah. It and it got to for me. It was like Peter Parker may or may not be a clone, and Jean Grey may or may not be dead. That's just what
Jean Grey
Marvel.
is just Schrodinger's cat at any point in Marvel continuity. She could be
Yeah,
alive, she could be dead. We don't know. Is she in anything this month? No, she's probably dead. I don't know.
yeah. Um, like so, like, but the MCU hasn't screwed that up at all. Um, like no movie that they've made so far has damaged the continuity of the universe. Um, they, other than the people they've killed off, and even that's questionable, they haven't irrevocably damaged a superhero's character to the point where you couldn't make another movie about them.
Mm.
Um, like Hank Pym never beat his wife.
Hmm.
Like they haven't screwed that up.
Right.
So like when I hear people being like, "Oh yeah, the MCU it may not be blah blah blah," I'm like, you're just comparing the MCU to what the MCU used to do. That's like saying Dre fell off. Like nobody beat him.
Hmm.
He's just maybe not making stuff that you're listening to at the moment.
Right.
Yeah,
But
he was in the lab with a pen and a pad trying to get the damn label off.
right. Like, and it's the same thing as like Eminem. Like he might not be like the newest, most current, most relevant thing, but like nobody's beat him yet. And MCU, same thing. No, MCU came along and dethroned Star Wars for big epic amount of movies, and that's saying something. Like
Yeah.
Star Wars was the top of the line for sci-fi space wizards for a long, long time. And I'm not trying to like take a dig
Yeah.
at Star Wars. I'm just saying that they've had
I,
what 10 movies, and
Yeah, or
no matter
11.
who you are, one of them is bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
for some
So-
We're all
people,
thinking of the same
more
one.
than one.
For a surprising number of people that are Star Wars fans, it's most of them.
Yeah. Star Wars is the franchise where more than half the fans hate more than half the content.
Yeah.
I feel like Star Wars has become like the old married couple of sci-fi where nobody likes it. Everybody can just point out everything that they're awful about it, but they'll stick with it because what else are they going to do at this point in time? Take up Star Trek? Like, don't be
Yeah.
ridiculous.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to pay for Paramount Plus. It's literally the only thing stopping me from being a Star Trek fan right now. Because I hear that they're eating well.
Really. Yeah,
Yeah.
just off of Star Trek.
Yeah. Because that's like all that Paramount Plus has, basically.
Yeah.
Is Star Trek. It's like, what else do they have? Yellowstone?
I think we're like finishing off a couple of the other series that we've been watching, and then we're gonna bite the bullet, get Paramount Plus for like X amount of time, binge all of it, and then cancel it.
Right. Yeah. Get that 7-day free trial and just leave it on all day long for a week.
Oh, there's enough content to last you the month, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's what, 3 seasons of Discovery?
Yeah, and then we got 2 of Picard now.
2 of
And
Picard.
then
There's
Yellowstone.
Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, and then when it's not both of you guys in the room or the whole family, just throw on some Next Generation in the background or something.
Well, we had actually before Next Generation got taken off of Netflix, we had watched through most of that, and then we were like, I want to say like more than halfway through Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
And then we decided that we didn't have to watch all of them in order because that's what we were doing.
Right.
As just kind of like our background TV show, but there's only so much Voyager I can take. So
that's the only one I watched any of. I feel like I watched most of a season of it when I was 12.
I'm pretty sure that
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the original series is still the thing that I've seen the most episodes of.
You know, I actually just watched the animated series of the original, and
that show was bonkers.
It was bonkers, but it was surprisingly good. Like, like there was times where I'm like, there's absolutely no difference between this and the actual original live action. Like, Spock's facial expressions have not changed at all. Like, they actually add depth to Will Shatner's acting ability in the animated version.
I don't remember anything specific about the animated version, but I remember being a big fan of it when I was a small child.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch if you enjoy the original series at all. I thought it was going to be a really crappy version of it, and it wasn't.
Because like I mentioned the fact that it's bonkers, but so was the original series. Like I remember one day I came home from doing a comedy show, and I was just flipping through stations, and I was like, "Oh, hey, Star Trek is on," and there was Kirk chasing a little person around Roman's sofa. Like
Uh-huh.
they both had knives, and I'm not 100% sure who was chasing who. And I was just like,
Oh
"Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
and
too
it's a
drunk for
circle.
this. I'm too drunk for this."
I feel
Yeah,
like being drunk's the perfect time to watch something like that.
like yeah, the original series is so. The original series, when you rewatch it, you're like, how the hell did this spawn Star Trek?
Hmm.
Um, like it's really cool. It's very progressive for its time, but I'm still like, how did this come out in the '60s and then in the late '80s they're like, yeah, we're gonna take another crack at it and it's gonna be different. Um, like that still surprises me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
On
would
a
think that it would just be like some sort of like artifact of like, "Hey, look at this cool thing that we did once," and they're
yeah,
just like, "Oh, let's see if we can do a better one."
and same thing with like Battlestar Galactica. Like
Hmm.
if you go back and watch the original and then watch, like it's cool for what it is, but then you watch like the remake of it and you're like, you got to be fucking shitting me that these two are related. Like
Right.
how? um, like there's just I don't know. On a similar note, we went back and watched The Perfect Score, um, Push, and Cellular as a Chris
Oh,
Evans thing.
right.
Um, and I remember when he first got cast as the first Avenger, I was like, how are they going to take a guy who, even if it was a bad movie, did a good job playing Johnny Storm and turn him into Captain America? And I was
Mm.
shocked when it happened. Like I was shocked that that actor got from A to B.
Right.
Hmm.
But then after watching Perfect Score, Cellular, and Push, I was like, how the hell did Chris Evans get from a perfect score to Captain America? Like, how? I don't know how that's possible. Like,
My only familiarity with him before before he was Human Torch was not another teen movie. So
Right.
for
Yeah.
me, it was just wild. I'm like, wait, why is anyone from this movie going to be part of a tentpole superhero franchise?
Yeah.
right?
Not just
Like,
that part of it, but like one of the stars.
Hmm.
Crazy.
arguably, like the star. Like, it's him versus Tony Stark for like
Hmm.
being the main. Like he had to like actually like star power like be pushing against Robert Downey Jr. for keeping the tension going in that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's the same thing as like you watch Bill and Ted, and then you watch John Wick, and you're like, what has this man's career done? Like
Hmm.
how?
Right.
I mean, even if you take into account that that is the alternate version where Ted got sent off to military school, um, like that's just crazy.
Still a crazy career evolution.
Yeah. So maybe we'll go
So,
over his filmography. What's up?
do we know what we're doing next week?
Yeah, I think next week we're going to discuss what we're going to do the week after. If that's
Well,
something
are we
would be
still
a good stream.
are we still watching a TV show to see if we like it until it fades out? Is
I
that the
think
idea?
I think that's what we would like to do, and I think next week we can discuss which shows we'd want to do it with.
I was
What do
gonna
you
say
think of that? Yeah.
I've got a short show
Oh yeah.
that we could probably bang out an episode or two of in the week that that is on Amazon Prime
Mm.
and it's kind of fun. I think it might be up your alley. Um, it's The Legend of Vox Machina. It's
Okay.
a animated show about Dungeons and Dragons.
Have you ever heard
Oh.
of Critical Role before?
I mean, I
Um,
hadn't until I watched the show, but
Hmm. I was asking David. That's the animated version of that. Basically, it's
oh,
a
okay.
actual play. Like they get a bunch of voice actors. They sat 'em around with cameras and played D&D, and
Okay.
people watched it. And enough people watched it that they thought, "Hey, we're all voice actors. Let's make a cartoon out of it." And they raised like a, mm, a few million
Oh,
dollars on Kickstarter,
wow.
and they said, "Ah, man, with all this money, we're going to be able to do an animated series, and we're never going to put it on a subscription service because you've already paid us money."
Right.
And they said, "Well, it turns out that making an animated series is actually way more money than we thought it was going to be. It's going to go on Amazon."
Hey, hey. That's cool. And there's that. You know how many episodes that is?
I want to say the whole season's only like 8
Nine, I
or
want to
9
say.
episodes. Yeah.
I watched the first two.
Oh,
The first two are like a standalone adventure, so they would be a
mm,
good way for us to
okay.
watch less than an hour worth of content, talk about it,
Right.
and decide if we want to keep going.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, we can start with that next week. Why not?
All right.
Let's do that.
Sweet.
So that is The Legend of Vox Machina. We'll roll out on that tonight as our little video, the trailer for that. So we'll see what that's
Okay.
all about.
Speaking of Amazon series,
Mhm.
um, next week, Friday the 29th, they're going to start the Paper Girls, which is it's based on a comic book by Brian K. Vaughan, same guy that did Y the Last Man.
Mhm.
Mm.
He was
I'm
also a writer on Lost.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah, yeah. You talk about this all the time on our
yeah,
Lost show.
anytime that it's a BKV episode, I always mention him because
Mm.
he was at one point my favorite writer in comics. But anyway, uh, that series is going to start on the 29th. I just finished reading all the comics last night. It's like 30 issues. I
Mm.
believe that it's still on sale right now if you want to get it digitally on Amazon for $20.
Oh, cool.
And
okay.
it's very good.
I'm 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 interested in that, so I'll look into getting that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a group of four paper girls in the 80s that end up time traveling.
Oh, nice.
Sweet.
It's not like the old NES game Paperboy, just a gender swapped, is it?
I don't actually remember the plot for Paperboy.
Well, I don't think there really was much of a plot. You were just throwing papers at houses, trying to hit the right houses with your paper
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
not run into stuff.
Oh, I thought it was you were trying to break stuff. More
You get
point.
extra points, yeah, for breaking stuff.
Okay.
And then there were certain houses you had to hit and something like that. I don't remember. Maybe I'll play that on my Twitch stream one day.
Mhm.
I can find a ROM for it. Anyways, yeah, so that's what we'll we do that next after we do. So next week, Legend of Vox Machina, and then yeah, so
We'll
do a
talk
little
about the
segment.
first two episodes of that,
Yeah, first two
First two
episodes.
episodes.
and
All
then
right.
find out whether or not we're going to watch the rest of it in the month of August.
Yeah, so we'll
Sounds
talk
good.
about it and see how we're feeling about it. Cool. And then to finish up our MCU time, our MCU our rankings and things. Got a little segment we're gonna do tonight called the Dan's Haiku Reviews. If you don't know, a friend of the show, Dan Connell, he does haiku reviews of movies he watches on Letterboxd. Look him up, Haiku Dan on Letterboxd. And so I've got some of the haikus he's written about some MCU movies, and I will read them to you one line at a time until you guys can figure out which movie he's talking about. We got 3 of them.
Okay.
Lay it on me.
All right, so we go. First one starts with fan service but good. That's 5 syllables, right?
I mean, that's that
No Way
end
Home.
game.
Um, No, it's not.
We're both wrong.
What did you say, Chad?
I said No Way Home. He said Endgame.
Oh, it was No Way Home. Yes, Spider-Man,
Oh.
No Way Home.
Okay.
And the rest of the haiku
fair.
was really enjoyed number 3 and makes up for the past. Which I guess means that he ranked Far From Home low like everyone else did. I wouldn't know because I'd never seen it and never will.
I think he might have been talking about
Amazing
Tobey
and
Maguire 3.
adjectiveless.
Oh, right, yeah, giving all of them like their moments. That makes a lot of sense too. We'll never know because we're never going to ask him. So next haiku starts with a light action romp. Any ideas? A light action romp.
I want a second line.
Lacking weight, but that's okay.
Ant-Man.
Yeah.
More specific.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yes.
Aha!
Finally, it's mixed up with its charm. That's the first haiku he wrote. Haiku review he wrote for that, which is pretty generic. You can't really tell out of any of that. Whereas the second review he wrote after watching it this last year starts with Pena stealing scenes.
Ant-Man!
Yeah. Fun visuals, running gags, and close-up magic, which I think is more specific to this movie. All right, so 1-1 right now, right? Yeah. Here we go. Let's start our tiebreaker. It starts with my arch nemesis. Any ideas? No. No. Okay. Marvel Soviet accents.
Iron Man 2.
Black Widow.
Black Widow. Yeah, there's a kind of a coin. So they both have bad Soviet accents. And When Will I Know Peace? But yeah, it's Black Widow definitely has the most bad Soviet accents per minute. There you go, Rory. You're the haiku master. You're the poet laureate of the show.
Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah,
nice.
I guess maybe it's actually Dan who, since he wrote all the poems. But, you know.
Don't take this from me already, David.
You can't just give it to him and then immediately snatch it back.
It's not like real college. You can't just be like, oh, whoops. No, not really.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was meant to go to Lori.
All right, yes, that's everything I have to say about the first 27 movies in the MCU. Well, I'm sure it'll continue to come up as we go along. But yeah, next week we're talking The Legend of Vox Machina, first 2 episodes for all the D&D heads out there. Is there anything else you wanna talk about tonight? Or we're gonna say goodbye to the people?
We say goodbye to the
Watch Ms. Marvel. It's good.
That's my next thing to binge, so.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, we're gonna write out on the trailer for The Legend of Vox Machina. See you all next week. Bye-bye.
Our only hope lies in these brave warriors.
What the fuck?
Right. Who else have we got?
I'm sorry, who the hell are you?
We're Vox Machina. We fuck shit up.
Let go! Come on, work!
Ah.
You can't be seriously considering them for such a task.
Our reputation is less than stellar.
If killing for gold isn't getting us anywhere, maybe we try doing some good this time?
Boring. If this evil persists, the kingdom will starve to death.
Boy.
I suggest we run right now. Fuck that. We fight.
Alright, we'll see you all next week when we talk about the first 2 episodes of Legend of Vox Machina. Ah! Night, everybody.
Night.
Bye.